Is it okay now?
Yep, you're good. I think, yeah, so far so good. Cool.
All right, cool. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Let's hope it stays that way.
Mm.
Yeah, so basically, that's why I just wanted to have a chat. Very
Mm.
casual. I'm just gonna ask you, some questions.
Yeah.
If you want to, go over stuff, that'd be great.
Yeah. I
And yeah,
I heard of art. I've heard the name Artwod. I don't know entirely what it is. I heard
right,
Adam talk about it, heard it,
right,
I've seen it but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So basically, my whole thing is that I kind of approached art training more as a workout kind of thing, where I
Mm.
I knew from physical training that if you do it consistently and you tackle your weaknesses long enough,
Yeah.
you'll progressively get better. And I kind of wanted to make a program that does the same thing for art fundamentals. Um,
Oh, okay, cool.
be pretty fundamentally based, right? So consistently train the fundamentals with like a various program, right? Something that is
Mm.
constantly training the core fundamentals, but in different assignment cycles.
Like different muscle groups.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
arms
So
day, leg day, and
yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
yesterday was leg day. I can barely walk right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what I'll do, I'll just start. I'll introduce you for
Okay.
a little sec, and then I'll just fire away. And if we happen to go off on a tangent, that'd be great.
Cool.
All right, awesome. All right, so welcome everyone to another Art-Wodcast. I'm joined today by none other than Ahmed Aldoori.
Hey, what's up? I'm Ahmed.
Ahmed. So you all know Ahmed. I don't need to introduce him basically, but he's a great concept artist. He worked for NetEase. He was a teacher at Art Center and Brainstorm.
Yeah. Worked at ArenaNet, not
ArenaNet. Sorry.
Yeah.
ArenaNet.
Yeah, names are
Bad
similar.
research.
Yeah.
So yeah, you basically know him as a great teacher. He has a terrific YouTube channel. I watched most of his videos. I'm a big fan of his sketching style. So yeah, without further ado, welcome Ahmed.
Thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, thanks for
It's always
being
an
here.
honor. Yeah.
My community went wild when I said I was having a talk with you. So
Y'all goofballs.
So basically, first, Ahmed, what I would like to know is that what would you say drew you to visual development? Like, what aspect of visual development intrigued you the most?
Yeah, I mean that starts a long time ago. I was what, 3, 4, 5 years old or something. Power Rangers, Batman, ninjas.
Awesome.
Like it's like I just want to sit there and draw that all day. And
Right.
I remember having this really bad skateboard. It was green, neon green, and black on the top, and on the art it was the Power Rangers. Me, my brother, and my sister would put that on the table, and we'd all like look at it and draw it, right? So there was always this interest in taking from the universe and making something out of it. And I think I was just always obsessed with mark making, right? Like we lived in a very small apartment. My dad would come home, and on lucky days, he'd bring like a stack of work papers that they don't need. And I would just like ask every time, like, is there paper today? And, I just get this huge stack and I'd just draw on the back of all of it. Anyway, there was an obsession.
Right.
What drew me to taking it seriously and as a profession, both in the industry as well as teaching, is the world building aspect, but also just the curiosity of what can we do, and the competition. Like I want to be really good and one of the best, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Of course.
And seeing artwork by like Craig Mullins, Ian McCaig, and old masters like John Singer Sargent, Lion Decker, Soroya, kind of opened up this idea of a brotherhood, sisterhood, family of humans on the existence of this planet that make marks, and there's a sort of connection we all have.
Yeah.
And being a part of that, it's kind of really fun and special. Now it kind of took me to a direction where I'm doing things not for studios or clients, but rather my own work, YouTube, that kind of stuff, but also using what I've learned all these years and creating stuff. So I'm collaborating with an indie game developer. Just me and two other people. We're just kind of making something, and it's really fun. And it's
really fun.
The most fun I've ever had.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, we need this by next week, and it has to be for this for microtransaction. I'm like, but now it's like I get to make whatever I want.
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid for it, but like, I mean, for the game thing as of now. But yeah, it's just, you know, back to your original question. Sorry, it's a long answer, but
no, go ahead.
It's just the one answer is if we didn't do art. Like you're a great artist. I love your style. And
thank you.
And there's so many. If we didn't do art, a part of us on the inside would die.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a choice of life or death of that part of ourselves.
Right, yeah.
And even if you're not getting paid for it, you got to do something, right? And it's that just amplified. And so that's what got me to where I am.
On that subject, do you feel that being a creative, do you feel that it's like a personality trait or more of a skill that can be not specifically like being a concept artist or an illustrator, like being a creative person? Do you feel that is something inherent?
Yeah, it's a personality trait for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I can't declare that as a fact, but you know, there's psychological studies regarding different personality types. Are they more agreeable, less agreeable, or more rigid, less rigid, that kind of stuff. And that all plays into creativity. Creative people tend to like, they prefer like possibility and exploring new ideas. And there's a really great video and an interview with this creator, filmmaker, I'm forgetting his name. But he said that creative people are like sort of different than most people because you have this big island, this continent of order. Here we have food, water, electricity. It's great. Everything functions. Things are where they need to be. Creative people are like, I'm getting sick of this. I need to go to that island where nothing's explored yet. They go over to that island and they let their imagination go wild, and they come back with a brand new album, Pink Floyd, whatever. And it's that leaving the continent of order, going to the place of the unknown, playing around and bringing back something that's digestible for everyone else. That's what creative people do. And it's, I think, in the nature of the creative person to not want to be in a box. And I think that's the personality trait that's different than,
I
for
agree.
sure.
Yeah. I heard this, like I heard some psychologists talk about this as well, about being a creative, and especially that fact of the need to create is so strong that it really does feel like a personality trait, right? You have that urge to do something. Like before this, I started drawing only like 5 years ago, but before that I was trying to make music, like figuratively, right?
Yeah.
And before that it was something else, right? And you didn't know why, but you had this need to create something. And I think that's very inherent for a lot of creative people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It might start with Legos or, a cheap guitar or something, but playing with something and making something out of it is just in our nature.
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand people who don't have that. And
that's a hard thing. Yeah.
I can't relate to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, they love schedules and routines and the same thing every day. And they love it. I'm just like, I would die on the inside, you know?
Yeah, but I think that's why creatives, and you see that with a lot of our peers in the art community, that we tend to be more on the entrepreneurial side of things, where we want to explore different venues and see what works, what doesn't work. But we also need that management type of personality, and we need to infuse it within ourselves, right? And that's sometimes a tricky thing. We don't have a management team to run our business.
I think we might be listening to the same psychology stuff.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I don't know if we're allowed to talk about certain names, but you know what I mean.
I know specifically what you mean. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I do, like, on that topic of being an entrepreneur, do you feel like the business aspect of being an artist is very much underappreciated in today's education?
Oh, for sure. Because the business aspect is very rigid in that if you go full business, that means you do market research, you understand what's working, and as a result of that rigidity, you have factory made things like pop music. What is the thing that works on every level, put that all into one thing and sell that. And for an artist who's a creative, they're like, no, I don't want to do that. It just feels so inauthentic to just serve the market. But at the same time, well, you also want to buy dinner, right? You want to pay rent. And so it's a bit of a balance. I think if you're really fortunate and lucky that you don't have to serve the market, then that's great. But at the same time, I think in the students, I guess, rubric of what they need to learn is definitely business side of things. The fact that you actually don't have to work for studios if you want to be successful.
Yes.
You have a voice, and if you put it out there, it won't guarantee success, but it might. Yeah. And it's like, well, I really want to make my dream art book or dream game or comic book. Well, do it. Fail a lot. Let yourself learn from those failures, as opposed to thinking you have to go work for someone else. So that's kind of why I left working the studios. It felt like I was babysitting someone else's child, which that's fine. But it wasn't my dream happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm in that in between state right now where I'm still doing a lot of studio work, but I'm creating my own platform, which is Art-Wod, which is more on the entrepreneurial side of things. But that kind of tears you apart a lot of the times because, you're managing so many stuff at the same time.
I think it's something between, one example is artists might end up going into Neverland where things are, dreamlike and you're having fun with the thing that you want to do. But as an adult, you have to eat your vegetables, which is like, you got to do the things that take you away from the familiar routine of just comfort zone, and then do what it takes to kind of elevate yourself and better yourself in every way possible.
Right. The thing on that though, I like one of my favorite videos from you is an older video called the Struggle of Creativity.
Yeah, Medcast 15, I think.
Yeah. Awesome video. And in that video, you discuss the fact that sometimes trying to be somebody can hinder you from your productivity, right?
Yeah.
But it can be good to accept that, or that you sometimes can try to be nobody, right? That kind of alleviates that pressure.
Yeah.
However, do you feel that still applies when you're trying to be an entrepreneur?
Yes, because I think it depends on what you're driven by. If you're driven by wanting to be seen as something to, I guess, I don't know, it's a bit tricky because if it's regarding your self-worth and like, I want people to know me as a successful entrepreneur so that I feel valid.
Right.
That's in that equation. I think it's not healthy.
Right.
Because you should be able to accept yourself with all that self-care, self-love, unconditional love, working out to make yourself healthier. Like that's all on you. Once you get that out of the way, becoming an entrepreneur, you don't really need the label. You just do the stuff.
Right. Exactly.
You don't have to tell people you're an entrepreneur, and so I think the striving to be somebody is the human nature of naturally wanting to be perceived as something of value. And so we could say that that's the ego. If you're looking at like the Jungian archetypes and stuff, and from what I understand, the ego can also be an obstacle for you to actually get to success, right? And so, for example, if I'm really focused on wanting people to perceive me as amazing, right, I'll start thinking about what the audience would think is amazing and just give them that. And it might work. And in fact, it did work for a period of time. But what I was doing is treating it like it's a performance stage, and right. I'm behind the curtains and I'm like, okay, what will get them to stand up and clap? I have to figure out what that is. I can't let myself be vulnerable. I can't let myself wing it. I can't let myself just be myself. I have to figure out what they want. And then, curtains open, I stand up and I give the thing that they want and it works.
Right.
But go back behind the curtain and think of it differently. What if instead, I no longer want to serve what they want, because what that does is I'm overlooking all that I could be, because that, what I could be is risky. It's not guaranteed that everyone's going to stand up and clap. And so curtains open and you get on stage and then you look at the audience and you think, I actually don't belong here. You leave the stage and you go do your own thing, and then people follow you and say, oh, we love what you're doing. I'm like, oh, really? Cool. Yeah. If you want this, cool. Right.
Right.
This is who I'm going to be. And if you start asking me to change for you, I won't. And that's kind of who I am. And then they end up liking that part of you, right, ironically, and then it resonates. And so I don't know. Yeah.
Right. So you're not actually feeding your self-worth anymore, or like your perceived self-worth.
Right. And it's like, it took a lot of like journaling and processing through uncomfortable emotions about myself, about my childhood, about people around me,
right,
how I perceive myself on a hierarchy, like, oh, I feel inferior to this. Okay, but why? Why do I feel like this has power over me? Or, stuff like that.
Right.
As I address those, they all go away. And, as a result, my sense of self-worth, I think we all start out with a self-worth of, yeah, I'm valid, right? You're a baby. All you care about is milk and, sleep.
Yeah.
And so you're not concerned about your own identity yet. But once the world starts to tell you, you need to do this, or, if you get bad grades, we don't see you as a valid person as much. And so you start to build this mental axiom, mental model of what you think you're supposed to do. But once you knock those things away, because maybe that was caused by toxic people or bullies or narcissistic parents or something, you're back to square one, where you're that baby mode. I don't know if that's the best example, but like you're at the default of what a human is supposed to be, which is I'm valid unconditionally. I don't need to prove myself to anyone, right? That's like on a personal thing. I think that's something I had to work on for me. It's not that I should go on YouTube and have really bad art and say, you have to accept this art and buy it. Like, that's not what I'm saying. It's rather, I need to work on myself so I get rid of all the things I'm carrying, these burdens,
right,
so that what's left is, oh, I realize that I'm a worthy person.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've seen The Social Dilemma, right?
Clips.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
It's I just wonder, do you feel like, because you're talking about that perceived sense of self-worth, and that's something I'm struggling with myself, even like in my personal art, is, do you think that line between your self-worth, what you want to draw, what you really want to draw, and what you feel like people want to see you draw, do you feel like that line is fading because of the influence from social media? Like, because
I think
the gist in The Social Dilemma is that you're getting, to some degree, you're getting brainwashed to having different preferences, right? Recommendations, stuff like that. Through these algorithms, your mind is being reshapen to a certain degree, right? So do you feel like your personal taste in art is also being reshapen when you're doing something for yourself, and thereby actually drawing more for the algorithm than you're expecting to do, right?
Right. It's definitely an ironic, weird paradox, catch-22 situation.
Yeah.
Because if you ask yourself, if social media was never a thing, or it somehow disappears and you kind of just shake yourself off of it for after a couple months, and you don't even have the option to share with social media,
right?
I feel like your work would be different. But the fact that it exists, I think, still somehow influences what I do.
Right.
Because like there's still a part of me. It's like there's a committee in my mind of like people who are running the show, and they're all just clones of myself. And one of them is like, well, this stuff is popular. I think, we should do a little bit of this. And I'm like, that's cool. The other person, But I'm trying to just be more myself. So I'm just going to do this. And the other guy's like, okay, all right. And as I'm doing the thing, he sneaks up. Maybe if you just a little bit, just a little, like, you'll get a little bit more likes.
Right.
And I'm like, fine. I'll just put that thing.
Right.
And so, of course, it influences it. And even the last few days, I've been writing about this, actually, because I've been wanting to do some art. And then I start the drawing and I start paying attention to the thoughts that come to mind.
Right.
And so, like, I'll draw a girl, right? Because I love drawing girls. Like, sue me, I don't care. And then I'll think, okay, well, if I do it in this style, then people will think I'm copying that person. If I do it in this style, it's too original. It's not familiar, so it won't be as popular. And then so my mind starts to think too much, like factor in too many variables in the equation that are sourced from social media.
Right.
Right. And then it starts to muddy the whole process. And so
exactly.
I zoomed out and I recorded that part. I actually did a quick chart. Maybe I could just show it real quick. If I could share my screen, if I could find it. Sorry if this is going to make you edit stuff more.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, I find it super interesting because I struggle with those exact same things.
Right.
Like I'm actually, since the start of my professional career, I've been struggling to come up with like this IP or identity for myself. Okay. And I feel that it's still being influenced by outside sources,
right.
through
right.
not social media also social media, but just, other people's styles, people that I admire, and finding that balance between what actually intrigues you to pursue a certain style versus what you feel like you should be drawing.
Right.
Feels like a fading line to me.
That's the thing. And sorry, I couldn't find the thing, but
okay.
That fading line is like such a weird situation because like the thing that actually is the most viral and that resonates with people is when you're just yourself.
Yes.
And like, unapologetically reaching into that part of you and then putting that out there. But that's really risky because like usually when you do that, it's probably not going to please everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think there's the part of us that is on a tightrope and we want to play it safe. And we're like, okay, what works? Oh, if I take a step like this, that works. People will clap, right? And it's very much a performance. It's like like the stage example. But I think when you take the risk of saying, okay, well, I know those people won't like it, but I have to willingly forego that and be okay with it. Right. And so, what's super popular? Stylized portraits, League of Legends, Overwatch, cute anime-esque lighting, rim light, glow. Like that stuff is super popular. And every time I do something, even if it's for myself, that other voice starts to evolve that to match that. And I hate that.
Yeah, same here.
And it's like, I don't hate it because it looks good and I like it, but I hate it that it's being sort of puppeteered by, you need more color dodge. You need more this angle. And yeah.
The thing that I advise my students is, because a lot of them are always looking for a style or pursuing a style. And I always advise them like, what in the end you should enjoy the most is not the outcome, but the process of what you're creating, right? That's the most important. But I think for us professionals, it's more of a, like I said, a fading line because we enjoy the process most of the time and we're good at creating stuff, right? So it's not like a hindrance when we're doing stuff. So it does feel like more of a, like a process of self-discovery, I think. But I get what you're saying. I
think also both of you and many people's dilemma is we're so focused on ourselves.
Right. Probably,
let's rewind, 40, 50 years ago and look at those artists who were really big in Drew Struzan doing movie posters or Sid Mead doing those concepts for Blade Runner. I feel like since they didn't have social media, they were just in their studio, not connected to the internet. They might have the radio playing or something, or TV. They're just making the stuff, and they probably enjoy every second of it.
Yeah.
But imagine if you transplanted them to our generation, they'd have the same problems as us. Yeah. We never really got to experience that, where our art will only be seen once a month because that's when we put it up on the gallery or on the wall. Yeah. And that's when people see it. And then now it's every 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
There's new art on Instagram or ArtStation. And so I don't know. I wish there was some kind of way to disconnect from it. And while you're disconnected, to not even think about it and then explore what might happen.
Yeah.
That's
a good thing that you're saying. It's also like, compared to those former masters and other artists, is that we're not permitted the time or the luxury of time, right?
Right.
It's all fast.
The sense of urgency. Yeah,
that sense. It's all fast paced these days, right? And I think that counts for all artists, is that we don't consider our artworks finished until we get to share it with someone. But that like that threshold for sharing with social media has been lowered so dramatically, right?
Right.
Because before we actually, like you said, Drew Struzan, or even Leyendecker, going further back, Norman Rockwell, they actually had to finish it in their garage, that traditional painting, before they got to mail it and whatever, and before it got to the editors and stuff like that. Before anyone actually saw it, it took a long time, and they didn't care, right? But now we can show stuff all the time.
You know what it feels like, now that you mention it, so back to that stage idea, it's like for them, they sort of had the same format. There's a stage, you present it to the clients or the world. But for them, it was like they go up on the stage once every 2 weeks or once a month. For us, it's like, all right, you're up next, go. All right, you're up next again, go. All right, you're up next. You, put your shoes on, go, let's go. Come on.
Yeah. This is exactly it. Yeah.
And I think, the explosion of the internet existing is great. But this is just one of the problems that we have to develop as a skill to understand, because we can obviously use internet to talk and share art.
Yeah.
But I think if you imagine the art career, like an MMORPG, where you have skill trees, you have perspective, line art, whatever, color theory. One of the skill trees is social media and understanding it, which factors in your own ego, self-worth, therapy, all that stuff. And I think each person has the responsibility to dive into that skill tree, and like take a step back and understand the situation.
Yeah.
Because if you get so caught up in that tornado, hurricane of like social media posting, blah, 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 it'll start affecting everything you do.
Yeah.
And you as an artist, doesn't matter where you are, here, Earth, Mars, underground, whatever's in front of you, since you're creative, you're going to do something. You're going to make art on the wall, right? And it just so happens that you're metaphysically in the social media hurricane, right? So learning to navigate it emotionally and all that stuff with the goal of authentic self-expression of what you really express naturally is important.
Yeah. Again, it all boils down to all good things in moderation, right? But it's easy to say, but hard to live by.
Right.
On another topic, like as a somewhat experienced concept artist now, and this is certainly one of my concerns, do you feel that concept art, like the music industry is like in danger of falling into that generic pop culture template?
100%. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw my review of the Dune trailer.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that pretty much sums up how I feel about that.
I agreed. Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, I didn't read the books 1,000 times, so I didn't know that it was supposed to look gray and like whatever. That's not just Dune though. The whole, like all concept art right now looks like it's kind of just, not all, I think most AAA things are starting to fall under like what's expected.
Yeah.
And I feel like the art directors are like trying to play it safe. Yeah. And I understand that. but it's all gray. It's all the same gritty color palette, mountains in the background, guy in the foreground. Like the cliche of everything is playing out over and over. And I think when that's the pop music version of it. But when artists are left to their own devices to make their own indie stuff, I think that's when the I guess the more creative stuff happens, because you're not limited by, oh, we need this many sales.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the positive side of social media, right? That these indie companies can come up with these new IPs and it can become popular, and Yeah.
I don't hate social media. It's just like you said, in moderation, it's great. But once you sense that it's running your life, you have to start taking a step back, get some new hobbies, pick some goals that aren't related to social media, and don't go out in the world and thinking, I'm going to go out in the world and whatever I do, I'm going to bring it back to social media and then share it. Like, escape somehow, you know?
Yeah.
I think, I don't know how old you are, but you're probably close to my age.
32.
Okay, same age.
All right.
If you look a bunch younger than I do, but 88, hell yeah. Wait, which month?
December, Christmas.
That's cool. March 16.
All right. Awesome.
Anyway, but we got to grow up in the 90s where the fun thing to do was go outside and ride your bikes and go to the hills and go up, and go to the store. You all pitch in 25 cents to buy a soda. I'm from Ohio. And I still see kids playing outside here and there, but we got to experience what life is like without social media. And so we can sort of dip back into that and understand a little bit more. I'm worried about people who are growing up in this and their self-worth is defined by likes and sharing. And humans naturally sort people by hierarchies. So the people who are naturally better tend to get more likes. And you see that and you're like, oh, obviously I'm inferior, therefore I shouldn't try. And that's super dangerous because you don't know your potential until you really try and go for it for a long time.
And not only that, also just the fact of going outside and doing things is just accumulating experiences.
Yeah.
Because experiences online to a certain degree are very virtual.
Vicarious.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of great artists talk about this, like Ian McKay, and Feng Zhu. It's that, accumulating experiences is what makes you an artist. It's what brings home that authenticity to a certain degree. And I think I'm starting to do it better now, is that I've seen this study about what the happiest people, what are the happiest people? It's like I think it was a Harvard study, 75-year-long study. And at the end, it boils down to the people who had the most experiences in their life, especially with friends and family.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm trying to
for sure
roll that back a bit and meet more with friends and be more social and stuff like that. And I think especially with the current situation, that is being highlighted, right? Those problems.
I absolutely agree. And the idea that, bringing those experiences, living life is so important, because I don't want to turn 80 and think back. Yeah. My whole youth and adult life was just scrolling down a screen, I don't want that to be my memory. But also, the external world, whatever is in your point of view, is what's going to influence the work you do. You look at Miyazaki, he took inspiration from his surroundings, from the forest, beautiful things, and his imagination goes wild. If he was stuck on Instagram during those parts, I don't think he would have come up with what he did, because in his field of view would have been Instagram. And when I'm in that mindset, it's like, if I'm going to make a piece of art right now, with the intent of presenting it to Instagram for it to be seen and evaluated, there's a certain set of rules I'm going to work by, like we talked about earlier. It's got to be this, it's got to be that. And that's if the intent is Instagram. And so then I discovered, when my intent is instead the game that I'm working on, it's way more fun. But it's just about exploring the idea and, it's hard to explain, but it's more pure. And it's like, it's just me having fun creating characters and scenes and storyboards, because I'm just imagining the game. The end goal in my mind is the game, not what people will think of it. Like, I don't care if people like this. This is the game I want. And
that process feels like smoke to me.
Smoke.
Yeah, it's like catching smoke, because one of my recent Instagram posts was a demo that I was doing for a tutorial for Artwod. But the thing was that I wasn't sure what I was going to create for the tutorial. So I just like, fuck it, I'll do something. Right?
Yeah.
So I just started very left-brained, right?
Yeah.
Just started shapes, whatever, didn't care. I just wanted to explain the process. And up until now, that's my most liked Instagram post.
Nice.
But then you might think like, okay, this works, so I need to replicate that, right? And so
the curse.
Exactly, the curse. So you make it an analytical process, and you try to, retroactively remember what you were trying to do in that flow state. And you can mimic sort of to some degree what you made. But then if you post that, it's like people catch up with that, and like they caught on with that, and then it doesn't get as many likes, or people are not in tune with it. It's weird.
Right. Yeah, I think we as humans are able to, I guess, sense when something's authentic.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. In one way, it's like you were in the flow state and you made the thing, right? And then when you go to do it again, it's like all those people are standing above you, like watching, like, all right, okay, do it again. Come on. Yeah. And so that kind of pressure, if you just imagine people around you just like arms crossed and just like waiting, it's miserable. There's nothing fun about that.
Yeah.
I feel like we've all been there.
Yeah.
But ideally, you get yourself in a healthy place where it's just you and the art and the flow state, and you get yourself out of the way, you get your ego out of the way, you get your ideas of what people will think out of the way, so that all that's left is sort of just being a vessel for the art to make itself.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was recording this masterclass with this school in Ukraine. Okay. Do you know Spiridon? He does all the art books for like
I know. I know. Yeah. And
it's
so the CG Cup thing, right?
Yeah, CG Cup, right?
Yeah, they contacted me a couple times.
Okay, yeah. It's pretty fun. Yeah. So like we're recording and we're trying to come up with this idea for this cool character, and I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I know what we're going to do. And so I do the thing, and he goes, that's amazing. That's so, you just came up with that? I'm like, I didn't. Like, it just happened. Like, I didn't think of this, It's sort of the universe made it happen. And I think that willingness to, in a way, not take credit for things, I don't know why I'm wording it that way, but I don't feel like I came up with it, because when I try to come up with stuff, it's very rigid. It's very forced.
Yes.
Right? But if I instead, there's the stories of muses, the artists in like, the Renaissance period and before that, the idea is that these artists were geniuses, not because they were smart, but that the word genius comes from the word genie, or insane in Arabic, at least, majnoon, jinni. And so like, it's like something was possessing them, and they made a thing, and they woke up from it, and then they created something, right?
Yeah.
In a way, it's almost fraudulent to take credit for it. Of course, this is just the meta talk of it. We should take credit for our own art, but like, how often do we let ourselves get in that flow state where something else is sort of like letting itself speak through you? I know it sounds a bit woo-woo.
No, I get that. Yeah. And that's the irony to some degree, for my sake at least, is that I have this flow state a lot of the times with client work.
Yeah.
Because I just get the brief, and then they're like, it's concept art. Do your thing, right? And then I get into that flow state. And you talk about this also in that the Struggle in Creativity video, where your creativity takes a hit when you're recording something and it's going to get views, right? Yeah. And I think it's the same, like when we do client work, we know it's NDA, right? No one cares. And that's what I struggle with. No one cares about the process, right? But when I'm drawing something that I know is going to be recorded on Instagram, my process takes a hit. Not the outcome per se, but my process takes a hit, because I'm like, okay, I probably need to do a pretty clean rough drawing. It needs to be,
Right.
the next step needs to be super clean, right? So everything needs to be very articulate because this is going to get viewed. Whereas with, concept art for clients, it's like, do whatever,
Right. It's about the idea, not.
Yeah, exactly.
That's. I'm so glad you said that. And the irony of a clean rough drawing,
Yes, exactly.
The two direct opposites. A rough drawing is like, the chaos aspect. It's like
exactly,
throwing a bunch of Legos, like, oh, what if we move these here, move those there, and we need more of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So on another topic, like I'm sure a lot of your students have this. A lot of my students have this. It's like this fear of failure.
Yeah.
And with Artwod, like the intent of the program is to actually infuse failure into the program, right? Constantly look for your weaknesses, identify them, tackle them some more, right? It's basic training principle. So, but I'm curious, like, how do you deal with failure, or how do you let your students deal with failure? It's like a specific thing that you can do in order to create resilience towards the fear of failure.
Yeah, for sure. I usually say it this way, like, naturally, of course, especially within our social media environment, we want to start drawing. We want it to look the way we want it to look, right? So it has to look clean, it has to look finished, and as good as fill in the blank. Right. Any evidence that is contrary to that, let's say a bad drawing, hurts. It really hurts. It's like it makes you want to give up. It's pointless. Other people are better. I'm not talented. And, that's, I think, the anxiety that this generation has, and our generation as well. That's because of social media or the ubiquity of the internet. So what I say is like, okay, cool. Take a stack of paper and look at the stack and say, all right, I want to do really bad drawings in this much paper, and I want to see what happens when I get to here. And I look forward to those failures. I can't wait to see them. I want to see what I'm bad at so I can work on it, and try to kind of hype yourself up. Like, oh, okay, it's actually a good thing to see where I'm not.
So you're giving yourself permission to.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like this willingness to see that your anatomy is off, as opposed to being embarrassed that it's off. Because of course we feel humiliated, and back to that image of being surrounded by people looking at you and like waiting for you to dance. It's very stressful. But if you're like, oh, watch this, I'm going to do really bad drawings and eventually I'm going to find out what happens. Oh, you're going to leave? Fine, go, cool. I don't need you, right? Because you validate yourself. And of course it's really, really great to be validated by people you look up to, but it's very dangerous to become dependent on that. Yeah. You don't want a codependent relationship with people online or anyone at all, but it all goes back to self-worth. And it's like, if your statement is, I feel worthless and I have low self-worth if I fail, that's where you got to work on. Put the drawings aside, start journaling, get some therapy, figure it out. And the way to look at it ideally is just that. It's like, my self-worth doesn't depend on the drawing being good or not. The drawing is outside of me. That's just a snapshot of where I am, and I'm perfectly okay with it. It's like very similar to fitness. If you're trying to lose weight, it takes time. It takes months, years even. And so you can't start your journey and day 2, you're like, I'm not fit yet. Wow, this is really bad. I'm obviously a bad person. I have low self-worth and I have no value in the world, right? And then you give up, right? We're human. Of course we would give up. But instead, if you say, oh, yeah, I'm still overweight, obviously it's going to take time. Yeah. It's the consistency that you have to develop as an adult. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely 100% agree. That's the basic startup for Artwod, and that's the reason why I like to compare it to CrossFit, because I'm a CrossFitter, and there's a lot of misconception about the sport of CrossFit. But it's very similar to training art, because you need to train all the fundamental skills of fitness, whether that's gymnastics, athletics, Olympic weightlifting, balance, whatever. So you know that you're gonna suck at them at various stages, right? But you need to just push through them in order to get better at all of them. And that's why I like the analogy.
And I'm sure, as you know, like through repeating that process of, oh, I know I'm going to suck at those deadlifts, of course, and then, oh, okay, I'm good at it. Oh, I know I'm going to suck at that. Then you know the format of, oh, I get good by sucking first.
Exactly. Accepting failure, that's the main thing. Like actually looking forward to fail, so you know that you're going to get better at it. That's,
easier said than done, but
easier said than done. But that's why just working out, because I know you started working out a lot more as well. It's just that mental state that will help you so much more. Just enforcing a good habit, enforcing a workout routine, or anything else, like another hobby outside of art, that just gives you that consistency, that good mental state. I think is really important.
Right, absolutely.
Now, from a teacher's perspective, and this is more my struggle, but I just want to see if you have the same struggles, is that the old saying, like, those who can't do teach, right? It's like a bullshit saying actually in the art community, we know that. But I'm curious if you find that teaching affects your personal growth for a little bit. Because to elaborate on that, I think that teaching art is one of the hardest things to do artistically, because you need to very articulately show the process, right, of the fundamentals. And you need to re-emphasize the rules over and over and over. And do you feel like by constantly emphasizing these rules that you're kind of falling into the trap of forgetting how to break them yourself? Right. And being more creative with them?
Yeah, totally. So let me address the first part, where there's a saying of, if you're not a good artist, you become an art teacher or something, right? It's rude to say that, but there's some truth to it, right? And here's what I mean. I've rarely heard anybody say anything good about their high school art teachers. I've only most of the time heard bad things, like, my teacher said I can't draw anime, right? And it's like, they're teaching art at high school for a reason, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let me just clarify. If that's where you are in life, that's fine. I think everyone has the right to be an artist and express themselves however they want. So there is some truth to it. However, like, Ian McKeag is an art teacher too. Yeah. He's one of the best artists I know. And, he conveys ideas so well. If you've ever seen his visual storytelling Gnomon DVD, you get so much out of it. Right. Obviously, because it's Ian McKeag, and he's like, "Don't you run away. We're gonna," he's great altogether. I'm trying to backtrack and remember the second part of the. How does it affect me personally?
Does it affect your personal growth as an artist?
Yes, but in a positive way, at least for me. There's something about when I think back to when I made the biggest jumps in learning. Because I went to Art Center College of Design, Entertainment Design. At the time, amazing program. I don't know how it is now entirely. But I learned so much. But the part where I learned the most is when I left. I worked at ArenaNet, and I came back to Art Center as a teacher. So I taught there. That's where I learned the most.
Okay.
And it's because I had to, like you said, really understand the material, internalize it, and explain it. And because of that, I was doing like 15 to 20 paint overs every week or every other day. I get, my students messaging me, and I had to like sit there and critique everything the best I can. And what that also did was it wasn't my art. So I was emotionally separated from it. And so I wasn't thinking about social media. I was just thinking about the composition, the fundamentals, perspective, lighting, all this stuff. No pressure, no stress. It was just, you want to change this? Do you want to crop it here? You want to put that there? Work on this, work on that. Because I learned the most. And so I actually recommended to a friend of mine recently. I'm like, hey, go to ArtStation, go to the latest posts, and pick any 20 random paintings or drawings and do a little paint over it, critique them. Don't send it to those people. Just keep it to yourself. But see what you discover about yourself. What would you do to make it better? Because you're not emotionally attached to it. So I think a lot of personal growth happened there. But to your point, where there's a certain rigidity when we start to teach the rules of like thirds and golden spiral, big, medium, small, color theory, warm versus cool. In a way, since you're teaching it, it becomes dogmatic. And that is very limiting. And I think that's another skill tree we have to learn. It's like, understand this, teach it, process it, show why it makes sense. But then there's also the part that you're an artist, where you look at the continent of rules and go off and break the rules in some island. Yeah. Like, well, 3-point perspective is cool, but what if we just bend everything, And so I don't know. I think if you feel trapped by it, just take a step back and ask the what if question. What if I didn't do this? And what if I stopped doing concept art for a couple of days and drew art like Egon Schiele, who's, really strange proportioned figures? Or what if I did graphic design instead? It's chaotic, to say the least.
So be a bit more like exploring in that aspect. All right.
Right. Cool. And I think as a teacher, you feel under pressure to have the right answers.
Yes.
And so like, if the artist in you wants to do all this stuff, but you're also a teacher, so in the stuff you do has to show what you're talking about, and otherwise you're an imposter.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think as you teach, to clarify, like, hey, these are the rules. These are just the tools that I'm giving you as a teacher that I'm also still learning. But you don't always have to use them. You can please think outside of the box and explore. Yeah.
All right. Good advice.
Yeah.
Last question for me, and then we have some student questions if you still have time.
Sure.
I think in your talk with Adam, you mentioned that, and this one really hit home for me, by the way, Ahmed. It's the psychological aspect of being a people pleaser. Right?
Oh yeah.
I've had, I've personally had this.
Yes.
I think a lot of creatives have this. It's like trying to change your audience opinion of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I haven't gotten rid of that yet.
Same.
But however, like, just to play devil's advocate, do you think to some extent that this might sometimes help you live a more exemplary life?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's all, I think, about the intent. If you're people pleasing for whatever reason, whether it's like, oh, that's just the market, I just need to pay for rent, so I'll do the thing, whatever. But if it's like, I really want them to perceive me as valid, I want them to notice me, I want to feel seen and heard, I feel invisible unless I do what they want to see. And it also might result in success, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, in the latter example, it has to be addressed. There's parts of us that are very needy for that attention, and especially if we didn't get that as children. And so I think you could still get very far, because you see a lot of YouTubers and social media people who are like that, and because of that, they become very efficient with what they do. And they get really big and it works, but it's like they're missing a bit of happiness that comes from not doing it for the sake of people pleasing. There's some channels that I follow about codependency, which is what that is. It's like, I feel worthless unless you tell me I'm good.
What's one of those channels?
Yeah, I'm remembering Lisa Romano. She talks about codependency issues with relationships. If you're stuck in a relationship with somebody who you feel is abusive with their words or narcissistic. There's also Dr. Rahmani, Rahmani.
Okay.
She talks a lot about narcissism. And every time they talk about these types of like relationships, I'm like, they're talking about a marriage, but what they're describing is the same format I have with social media, where I feel like I'm disempowered and I need to people please, and especially if I have very needy, low self-worth. And so whenever I see them talking about this, it helps me zoom out. And whenever I zoom out and I'm more aware of it, I do it less, little by little. It's never overnight. It's always like a work in progress. And the way you heal from that is catching yourself every time. There's people I like. Every time I'll do a drawing, I might have a specific person in mind. I'm like, I want them to see this and like it so that they notice me.
Right.
And then I start the drawing. I'm like, wait a second, hold up. Just sit with this for a second. I'm going to write about it. And then once I'm more aware of it, I'm like, okay, I won't do that. And even if it means I won't do art today, fine. But at least I've won that battle. I'm no longer a slave to wanting to please that person.
Right.
Because that person, the irony is, when I used to do that, the person will like the thing and comment and like message like, hey, this is really cool. But it doesn't fill anything. It doesn't feel like anything.
Right.
It doesn't do what I wanted it to do. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll do it again. Maybe it'll work next time,
Don't you feel that it, to some extent, sometimes it's like a paradox where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but up until a couple of months ago, you hadn't posted a lot of videos, right?
Yeah.
And so, but this ego had been created, like Ahmed Aldoori, the YouTuber, like famous YouTuber, big voice in the industry. To some degree, didn't you feel like the need to further feed that ego, to a certain extent? Like, I need to continue this persona in order to feed my business, like my entrepreneurship, right? This, to some extent, doesn't it go in hand?
Well, so that ego was huge in my older videos, and I've taken many breaks, like very long breaks. My earlier videos, while I did talk about mental health and like this kind of stuff, I think it was driven mostly by the ego wanting to be seen and perceived as an art authority. Right. Then I got a lot of followers, and then imposter syndrome hit hard.
Right.
Like, I'm going to get caught. Someone's going to be like, actually, you're a nobody. You don't have any value. And that aligned perfectly with my low self-worth. And so during those breaks, as miserable and depressing as my life was, I was slowly climbing up. I'm slowly watching these videos about, health and stuff, and building up my own self-worth. So as I'm coming back, it's instead just a snapshot expression of where I am in my life.
Right. Okay.
And so I think getting the ego out of the way, what's left now, there's still for sure ego left. I can't say it's all gone. Like, I still feel like a fake. I still feel like an imposter, even though, like, I feel like I don't have the right to go on to YouTube right now and make a podcast about the same stuff we're talking about as if I know everything in the world, because I don't.
I get that.
And so I'm still even reluctant because I still feel like an imposter. But for the brand and for, Gumroad and entrepreneurship and the classes that I'm doing in the future, I need to bring it back up.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I'm doing YouTube again. And
because that enables you to be more of an authentic self.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm still struggling, so I like, just today, this morning, I'm like, okay, I should make a video of like another podcast just by myself, because most of them have been with people. What should I talk about? Well, I can't talk about anything that someone might disagree with, or I can't make any claims or pretend I'm an authority on anything, because I'm not. Excuse me. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll just write about something for like an hour, and whatever that is, I'll talk about it. And I just didn't do it. So,
and that's a shame, right?
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Well, I feel like people won't take me seriously in a weird way. It's like,
I think a lot of people do, for the fact that you discuss it. That's the exact
weird,
reason,
right?
That's the exact reason why I making these podcasts. It's just that there's a discussion going on. None of us are an authority on any of these principles that we're talking about, but people like to see it discussed, so they don't feel like they're the only one struggling with that.
I think you just helped me unlock something. Yeah, I've been looking at it wrong, because like every time I think about making a video, I did have this weird assumption that I have to put on this authority.
Yes.
But I'll just start with that and say, yeah, I'm not God. You know?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
No, but we like to hear other people's opinion.
Right. It's vulnerable. It's vulnerability. Really.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
But that's like what I feel missing, or at least even in the media is being hidden. Like healthy debates are not as highlighted anymore as they used to be.
Yeah, it's just the extremes right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Me in the middle. I'm just like, I'll just stay quiet.
I'll just stay here. I'll just stay put. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna live my life.
All right, just a couple of student questions, and then stop hogging your time. Okay, so one of the questions is, how should you approach cultivating a certain stylization in your art, such as your own playful style, or other artists such as Anton van Dieff, Zach Retz, Patrick O'Keefe? Like, how should you approach cultivating a certain stylization is the question.
Steal it. You just steal it.
There you go.
I don't, you know, my style, I feel like when I look at my work, I see it as a copy of a mix of a whole bunch of styles. Yeah. So I feel like it's not even my style. Like
an accumulation of other people's styles.
Yeah. And that's me trying to not take credit for my work again, but whatever. So I studied Ian McCaig, J. Scott Campbell, Joe Mad, Luke Hollis, Craig Mullins, Jamie Jones. And then the result is what I have. So the answer is study, copy, trace the art that you like analyze it. Like, oh, okay, it seems like, Zach Retz makes shapes like this, or John Park really likes to space out his shapes like that in his composition, or, drawings or line art. Just study, analyze, and the more you do that, the more your work will start to kind of have that stuff show up.
Right.
However, I think you should study multiple artists, because if I'll get tagged in Instagram for posts and stuff, and I'm like, okay, that I don't even remember drawing this because I think it's my drawing, but it's not. It's just somebody who's looked at my work a lot.
Yeah.
And so which I don't mind. Whatever, I understand. But I think you should have art parents as Proko and Marshall Vandruff, not Proko, Stan Prokopenko, because Proko is just the name of the brand. Anyway, they say to have art parents. We have multiple people influencing your work, and color theory from this, and a bit of anatomy from that, but storytelling from this, and maybe have some influences that are unexpected, like a specific type of shell on a beach somewhere in some random continent. I don't know.
All right. Next one, short one. Has your experience with the standing desk remained positive?
Absolutely. I mean, right now it's here, it's good. But the thing is, I just installed a bunch of new stuff, so the wires I'm not sure are long enough. Like Huon just sent me this tablet that I'm reviewing. It's pretty good so far, by the way. I'm actually impressed.
All right.
I got the camera set up over here and this camera there, and so I have to figure out the wires, and then I'll get standing again. But yeah, it's great. Actually, another one here. So.
All right, good to know.
Yeah.
Last one. What's your opinion on studying digital painting as a complete beginner? And where does traditional practice come into play? Are there situations where it's better to practice digitally versus traditionally?
Yeah. So I'm actually building a course on digital painting. That's something I plan to release, a sort of 8-week course that you do on your own. I won't be critiquing your work. It's just, so look forward to that.
Very excited about that.
I can only talk about my journey. So I started between I think I was 16 to 17, 18, 19. I was painting traditionally. I was learning acrylic, oil painting. I would see these step-by-step not even videos, just images of somebody doing an underpainting with burnt sienna on a canvas and building up colors. I learned a lot from that. How to mix colors, how to get the right values. And even from that, my paintings were horrible. So that's where my failures were.
Right.
Going to digital, it was much easier to understand layers and values and contrast. So I think you don't have to do that, though. You could learn painting completely digitally, whether it's on the iPad or on your phone or Cintiq or whatever. The benefits of digital is you can do way more in less time. So you could do 10 studies in less time than you would do one study with an oil painting. There's different things you'd learn from spending that much time on an oil painting, but through repetition, if you do a value painting and you do another one, you start to know the differences of what happens when you put this here or put that there. And constant repetition will inform your mind and your mental library of like how to layer brush strokes. Like with oils, you'd have to do it slowly. With digital, you layer the brush strokes quickly. So there's that benefit there. Does that answer the question? I think that covers it.
Does, yeah, very much so. Yeah. Just to throw my opinion in there, I'm leaning a little bit towards the other side of that. I'm very much a believer in learning traditionally. Just for the simple fact, and I agree with everything you said, but just for the simple fact, when, again, to compare this with any other endeavor, basically, but also with training or whatever, it's your consciousness and your attention span. And the attention span with a lot of people is fleeting, especially in this day and age.
True.
And it's the exact same reason why Peter Hahn advocates for fine liner drawing. It's that it requires 100% of your focus without distraction. And as soon as you put 100% effort into something, whether that's color mixing or drawing with a fine liner, your learning ability goes up exponentially compared to where you allow yourself to make unnecessary and unforced mistakes.
Right.
That's why I lean, on the traditional side. But
if I could add to that, yeah, for sure. The thing is, like, what I said was kind of like the blanket statement.
Yeah.
If I set up a curriculum and I'm going to train you to learn how to paint really well, your first 3 months is oil painting, or gouache or acrylic. Yeah. It's like, I personally would make you do it, but you don't have to.
Of course, absolutely. And there's also the cost benefit of doing it digitally.
Yeah,
oils are super expensive.
They're expensive. Yeah. Even the cheap ones are expensive.
Yeah,
like $8 per tube, and
gouache is okay, but still expensive.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for the questions. Just my final question with every podcast or Art-Wodcast is if you could recommend one book and one tutorial, what would it be? The tutorial can be anything. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be an educational book. It's just something artistically or even that. If you could recommend like one book that really helped you and one tutorial.
Oh, so still related to. I was going to recommend a sci-fi book, but okay.
Well, go for it, Ahmed.
My people are sick of me saying this on my Discord, but I really love the 3-Body Problem science fiction, hard sci-fi, by a Chinese author. An amazing trilogy. I keep trying to get people to read it so I could talk to them about it.
And what's the title?
3-Body Problem.
3-Body Problem. All right.
Yeah, it's the idea of like three structures, like 3 stars, or 3 big planets that are orbiting around it. It gets chaotic. Anyway, the visuals from that trilogy as an artist, actually it is related to art, are incredible. Like it made me think about things completely from a different angle. When they talk about dimensional transposing from 3D to 4D to 5D, I'm like, we could do that in art and paintings and
Awesome.
But if not that, then Ian McCaig's Shadowline, amazing book.
Okay.
Tutorial, I mean, I'm just going to recommend my own, but I don't watch too many tutorials, so I don't know.
There you go.
I think
pick one of your tutorials.
Well, no, I think Cynic's tutorial on big, medium, small is
I agree.
Must see for everyone.
Yeah. His design tutorial is amazing.
Even though he stole that from me, but yeah, that's
Okay.
totally. I'm just
Get
kidding.
that on the record.
He mentions it in the video. He's like, I got this idea from a man Aldoori. So,
Awesome.
sorry, Rob. His name's Rob, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. It'd actually be great to get him on the podcast.
I'll tell him.
Awesome. Thank you.
He'd be glad.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
Well, that was it. Ahmed, thank you very much for joining me. It's been
Antonio,
a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. And I'm super glad to be chatting with you about this stuff. I got some stuff off my chest, so I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man.
Thanks to everyone for watching.
Bye-bye, guys.